game so far. Camille on the side of Fnatic, most likely swayed as well from Fnatic coming in later. Now, do we get this Tristana ban or not from G2 eSports?
Well, G2, their final ban on red side was the Skarner. Given all of the jungle bans they had already seen, it seems like they're going to show that respect. You can see the smirk on Hjärnan's face being like, okay, fine, we admit it, your Tristana's rather good.
What was it? 13 out of 20 bans in the semifinals were AD carries, and we'll see how many adds up today.
The last ban I would like to see from Fnatic would be Olaf. I think Olaf, at the moment, is Jankos' best jungler. He can completely take over early games on it. He can snowball out of control, and Fnatic should respect that a lot on their side. Caitlyn is also available, but again, not something we've seen both teams put a ton of priority on.
So the final ban coming in from Fnatic. Last time around, they banned both the Trundle and the Olaf. They will not be the ones to ban the Trundle. You already talked a little bit about that Olaf. I do think it's going to be extremely important for G2 to grab up for themselves.
So what raises in priority, gentlemen?
Ooh,
a little bit of surprise on the Fiora ban.
Yeah, I think if Fnatic are planning on showing an early tank on their side, they're thinking G2 might early pick for Wunder, and that could have been the Fiora.
Yeah, I feel like that.
You're giving Olaf now.
Yeah, I feel like it makes the most sense for G2. I'm just a little bit surprised by this because the fact that they would ban away the Camille, typically we've only really seen Fiora as an answer to the Camille. So to take it away just off Wunder, they're clearly very afraid of giving it to Free. Perhaps Fnatic are considering a potential Gangplank pickup for themselves, but it's still very risky this early in the draft.
The Ryze pick is also available in this draft here. Was picked early by PerkZ in the last one and used well in the early game. Could be the same here. If G2 eSports can get Olaf, Tahm Kench, Ryze, that is such an amazing snowball comp that is really difficult for Fnatic to deal with. You see on Fnatic's side, they're not putting value on those two picks. They want that Braum from Hylissang again because it allows him to be so impactful in team fights.
Yep. I mean, it is one of his most played champions from the regular season, one of his best performing champions. And there it is, the carry for Wunder, the insta-lock Gangplank. So much confidence coming out from G2.
Will we see a carry pick from Bwipo against the GP up in that top lane? Or will it still just be a tank for him and they're fine saying, you know what, you might not be able to shut down a GP, but it's still going to take some time before Wunder becomes a huge carry and we can do something else on the map while we're waiting for the GP to scale.
So much pressure. We're not going to find the answer yet. It will be the sign locked in just a moment. So tank first carry.
Could still go mid lane, but most likely it will be top.
Yeah, after the Banner of Command changes, we kind of saw the less priority on putting Sion in the mid lane. He's typically seen up in top, and I'm sure that Bwipo is more than happy to play this matchup into Wunder. We now move into the second phase, and so far both sides have matched their priorities. So G2, they can follow a Vitality strat and look to ban away more AD carries if they want to, but Fnatic, they will have first pick, so if they do that, you're really going to limit the pool for both Hjärnan as well.
Luckily, Jin is still there for both guys if they want to grab that one. Obviously, otherwise, we're kind of looking at more late game focused AD carries as we typically see from both Rekkles and Hjärnan if they have to pick late in the draft.
Please forgive me for what I'm about to say, but Rekkles hovered a Vayne in semifinals, and I was excited at the possibility. Ezreal was open, he ended up going with that instead. Let's see what these last two bans are going to be, because the pool is being pressured. It is a Cassiopeia to complete the phase 2 with Jinx.
Kind of implies that Fnatic are looking to get themselves the Ryze if they're banning away the Cassio. Consider one of the better matchups, and G2 immediately going to say, we can see what you're doing. We're not going to give you that opportunity. Ban away the Ryze ourselves.
I want to mention the Karma now that was played in the last game and worked very well to buff up Rekkles. Should still be a pick to consider for G2 as well, because they got damage from the top lane. They have a jungler that benefits from movement speed in Olaf, so he can get to the backline fast enough. The Karma mid could be a good choice also for PerkZ.
Ooh, the blind Zoe kind of puts the pressure on G2 as well, because you think about some of the mid laners that are left, Azir and Talia. Zoe is considered by many pros to be a good matchup into them, which means that G2, they're kind of limited in what options they do have down towards the bottom lane. Hjärnan eyeing right now one of his more comfort picks from the regular season.
8 games played, 50% win ratio. It is locked in. And PerkZ will be securing that Karma for the mid lane.
Yeah, this mid game from G2, it's insane. When they get Rage Blade on Varus, and they have a Karma as well there with a ton of mid game damage.
Training Force on Gangplank too.
Training Force, GP, and Olaf with good early DPS. Like, there's a lot of ways for G2 to snowball this game, but just like last game, it comes down to execution around especially the Baron.
And Sivir locked in for Fnatic. After all the AD carry bans, Just a reminder of exactly what Rekkles did in that previous game. He's going to have a lot of utility to offer his team in this game.
And just look at the difference between the two AD carries. Hjärnan is barely able to threaten the front line, whereas Rekkles, utilizing the bonus movement speed that he gets from the Karma and the extremely long range of the champion itself, he is constantly dishing out damage and just being so much more of a threat.
All right, so what does that mean now when we look at these team compositions? Deficio, you've touched on G2. What about Fnatic?
At Fnatic, a bit like last game, it feels like they're looking to just get into the team fights and set up the Sivir this time around for Rekkles. Like, there is 3 tanks who can provide the front line. There's, of course, Caps, who's going to be able to deal a lot of poke damage, but not going to be the one we look mainly at for the actual late game team fights. It's going to be Rekkles.
Yes, as it usually is. His Sivir is something that also has a huge amount of impact on in these fights. During the regular season, when G2 went up against Fnatic and specifically Rekkles' Sivir, that was one of the key champions that allowed Fnatic to stall and to come back into the game later on.
Sivir always has the 500 CS win condition.
Yes.
It feels like once you get to that late game, the impact it can have is phenomenal.
Very true, and that's why I really want to highlight again, G2 eSports early to mid game is so good with this draft. If they're able to get ahead, which they should be able to, if they can actually play around the first Baron and use so much movement speed and a massive GPO to slow down the enemy team, they can force fights when Fnatic are not ready to deal with it, and then they have to be able to close out the game.
Well, let's see if G2 can actually land those team fights. We saw in game 1 how it faltered as the game played out. We're going to head to Law, who's talking to Grabs.
Okay, so what is needed here to get Sivir set up?
I mean, as per usual, late game for Rekkles, what a surprise. But this time we have the Karma, and Varus is pretty good against the tanks, so I think in late game we should have the upper hand right now.
All right, well, let's get it to the Rift of Fnatic versus G2, game 2.
Thank you very much, Law and Grabs. Typical Rekkles get to the late game. We heard the analyst talking about that as well.
And while I can definitely see his thought process in terms of the late game, how there are tools for G2 to win it, just based on the performance of the teams, we have to say Fnatic's late game is just going to be superior with how they're performing and how especially the AD carries play.
And it's kind of because of this man. Yes, we've said his name a lot. We have been repeating it. But when an individual gets 1.4k damage per minute in a single game, it's kind of hard not to highlight that.
It's ridiculous.
51.7% of his team's damage. And now, in his defense, his mid laner was playing Karma, but even then, his poke damage was pretty significant. It wasn't like he was a slouch in that game either.
You don't need to defend him. I think he's happy with it.
But, sorry, yeah.
And of course, that's exactly the reason why he ended up picking up that Spring MVP. You can see his KDA 13.5 over the split, high CSD. We'll catch up on the gameplay as it pans out. Important to note that he was the MVP with 86% of the votes.
Oh, what happens here?
Bwipo, the rookie, trying to stop this invade, ended up blowing his flash very early. So Jankos and Wunder with a small advantageous play.
And last game, we had the first blood in the top lane. It was Jankos who ganked Bwipo and shut him down on the Sion. Can look to try and do the same thing in this one. If they can get Wunder further ahead in his lane, that is huge. He's on a carry now. He's on the GP. They early pick it for him in the draft because they know Fnatic would otherwise just ban it away in that second phase. So this is really going to be the big game for G2 eSports. It's a great composition for them. It's how they want to play League of Legends, and now it's time to execute.
Eyes are going to be on Jankos to see if he can get an early game lead. Though on this Olaf, Deficio, you talked a lot about how G2 have a very strong mid game with the composition, the Rage Blade power spike, the Trinity Force from Gangplank. You need to be finding those early advantages if you want to be snowballing that mid game.
And the question I'm going to have is how pivotal Karma will become during the course of this series. Game 1, Caps had a fantastic game. For PerkZ, it's his first Karma of the split. And of course, you can see how it'll work, how it'll benefit the composition. But every time you have these best of 5 series, you have this mini meta game that will evolve. How much will this champion become impactful? Of course, it will depend on PerkZ and G2's performance, as the early game is already slightly G2 favored, thanks to that invade and the pressure on Bwipo.
Yeah, so much as well in terms of Karma's success comes down to how well the carries around her can perform in the fights. She buffs them up so effectively with the movement speed. She's hard to kill as well, and she does offer a lot more value than you expect in the late game.
Oh, for sure.
But you still need then your AD carry or your top laner in this case to be the main damage dealers if you look at the entire fight. And that's why it's not just on PerkZ to perform, it's on Hjärnan and Wunder as well.
And you mentioned briefly Wunder up in the top lane. He will be one of the main damage dealers as Hjärnan takes a lot of damage from Rekkles and Hylissang in this early laning phase. But Wunder, he is running the grasp on the Gangplank, something that we've been seeing develop a lot more already all across the world. It gives you so much more sustain during the laning phase, and from talking to many pros, typically this is actually a really rough matchup for the Gangplank. Players like Wunder even told me that, like, due to the changes to grasp, it just gives you so much more sustain. You start stacking the procs on the minions, and then you hit your opponent with the parlay, you get a bit of health back, and it just basically means that during the early laning phase, you can get through it with a fair amount of HP.
Well, look at the CS there, Vedius. 24 for Wunder to 11 for Bwipo. Bwipo, of course, got pushed out of his own jungle, so definitely feeling the pain and feeling the pressure already.
Doesn't help that he lost his flash either at level 1.
There you go. But what does that mean for the rest of the game? What does that mean for the rest of the series, of course? We touched on how, in theory, this is where G2 should have a very sizable advantage in the Wunder versus Bwipo matchup. A lot of pressure on Wunder to actually step up and help carry this game with this Gangplank.
Exactly, and also a lot of pressure on Jankos to perform on the first pick, Olaf. This is the pick where, if you ask any jungler in the EU LCS, they say, yeah, Jankos on Olaf is so scary. He's the best performing player on that champion, and needs to be able to actually carry his team here. PerkZ already winning early trades against Caps with the Karma, and Jankos is looking for something. He's trying to be active. We'll just have to come in and help push the wave.
Yeah, we saw the Spell Thief Ignite from Caps thrown down onto PerkZ. It's an even CS game as Caps is already going to teleport back to lane.
Broxah's here.
Unsealed spellbooks available for both. The Impale comes out as the Chilling Smite lands onto Broxah, and that means PerkZ flashless. That is an opportunity.
PerkZ wanted to try and sidestep the E coming out from Broxah, but the hitbox is a little bit wider than he was initially anticipating, so just respect flashes. Doesn't want to get stunned up with the immediate follow-up that could have been there from the Sleepy Trouble Bubble from Caps.
So just the burst damage actually coming in.
Yeah.
Kind of surprises you how much damage it deals when Skarner finally stuns you and then smacks you in the head. Broxah and Jankos just looking at each other. Jankos will get a bit of poke damage on him, but Wadid is actually on his way.
All right, Jankos hits him with the meat, keeps throwing out the undertows. Some support was coming from Wadid, but there's no further follow-up. Caps Paddle Star waiting in the wings. And it's an even start. Both junglers a little more active, but Broxah is responding to the pressure that Jankos is putting down.
I'm glad we've just moved up towards the top side, because this CS discrepancy, I mean, ooh, this could be good.
Oh, good flash from Wunder. Early level 6 for Bwipo. Means he's going to get the Gangplank flash down, but it's a gigantic CS discrepancy. As you mentioned, it was 20 just before the graphic popped up.
Yeah, so thanks Stats for bringing this one up. You can see that he does have a winning record, but it is still a little 50-50, because one of the big things that G2 have found during the regular season is often they get these early leads, especially with the Gangplank, and it's usually because they play through topside.
All right, Bwipo's flash is still on cooldown for a few seconds longer. Undertow into Rekkles swing plus the cannon barrage. Bwipo's going to get taken out. Not yet! The shield comes up, and Jankos, the first Blood King, not going to do it. Finally gets picked up. Wunder even had some support from PerkZ and Wadid. Everybody came up to play, but it's Jankos that secures it.
Yeah, Wadid swapped to TP to join in as well. Hylissang tried to save his top laner here. It didn't work. Bwipo getting punished once again, and second game in a row we get first blood from Jankos in the top lane.
And Wunder now in a fantastic position for G2. Oh, this could be bad for PerkZ. He does have the cleanse.
Bubble trouble, not done yet. You have to jump to the top lane.
Wait, Hylissang,
Barrels
gotta be
come
careful,
down.
my
Hylissang
friend.
level 4 versus level 6. Winter's Bite comes out.
Oh, he's baiting
He's
it.
running very low. Here comes Broxah. Chilling Smite and Flash available to him. Gonna use that ultimate. Catch him down. Broxah bites back.
The support bait here. Hylissang staying top lane. Meanwhile, bot lane, both AD carries are just sitting 1v1, but Wadid is on his way to try and push Rekkles away. So much action towards the top side just because everyone wanted to help.
The ultimate trap card there, Hylissang, pretending to be the naive support. But this is where it all kicked off. Bwipo, he does have his flash here, but he recognizes that the moment Gangplank gets his ultimate, he's not really getting out of this situation. He wants to keep them around, given that the TP was coming in. Maybe with Hylissang, he can get out of this situation, but unfortunately, it was not quite enough.
And now, despite Hylissang actually setting up a kill after this, I really do not like that TP. I think it's so rare you actually end up saving someone. That could have been back to your bottom lane to further try and get Rekkles ahead, or at least guarantee Rekkles a good laning phase. But of course, seeing as Wadid were matching TPs, ended up being the same. And this is just a quick replay of what happens if you get baited by a support.
And I really want to give some praise to Hylissang. His Braum has been phenomenal in the postseason. His teamfight impact was huge. His decision-making has been great. And he's one of the Fnatic players that you rarely talk about because there's so much more star power, because of the story of the organization. And as it stands, Hylissang's having a good start to Game 2 here in the finals, baiting out their kill, helping Broxah get further ahead.
It's one of the quote-unquote curses of being on the Fnatic roster where, because so many eyes are on stars like Caps and Rekkles, often the other players can be regularly overlooked. But Broxah, so consistent in his performance in the jungle. Hylissang, always willing to make plays, and you always had that SOAS effect during the regular season where even if he fell behind, you knew you could count on him during the later game, and you hope that coming into playoffs, he passed some of that knowledge onto Bwipo, who's been very solid so far.
And you talk about the top laners falling behind on Fnatic being a thing we've seen a lot. It's why this matchup is so interesting, because it's just the opposite on the side of G2. They can never afford to have Wunder falling behind. They need him to always do well in the early game because they put so much focus on him. They put resources into him. GP as a carry is fantastic once you get further into the game. But early on, he doesn't add you that much outside of what could be important, his ulti.
Right.
But that really gives you a lot of value if you're like lane swapping a lot or if you're playing towards bottom lane. They're not doing that. They go top lane to further gank for Wunder.
Yeah.
So a lot of it's just investing time into him, and then hopefully later in the game, when GP finally gets his items, he will pay you back.
Well, with the assist and the additional CS, Wunder's currently 500 gold up over Bwipo. There is a little bit of challenge here on the Ocean Drake from Wadid and Hjärnan.
And here's where we have to remember the GP ult could be important if a fight breaks out, but all of G2 backs away because PerkZ was not allowed to move close to the river. Caps actually zoned him away, landed even some more poke on the Karma, so good control from the mid laner.
I also think the concern was the difference in TPs. You can see Bwipo's is up and Wunder only just coming up now, and while the Gangplank ultimate was available, if Fnatic had 5 members, that fight was always going to be a difficult one for G2 to win. So just showing respect, now Fnatic get themselves the early Ocean.
Yeah, they do. That's going to help them out for this extended laning phase, or however long the laning phase plays out to be. Still an even game, just that single objective separating the two teams, and both junglers going to be looking for some opportunities.
Now we're looking at a couple of differences in terms of itemization in the middle lane from PerkZ. Last game, Caps went for a very early tier, went for the Seraphs, and then followed up with a very early Death Cap. Instead, PerkZ going for a little bit more utility, going for the Athene's Unholy Grail, and giving those stacks opportunities as gank happens up top.
All right, let's see. Where is Bwipo going? Can he buy enough time? Wunder's gonna get out of range of that onslaught. A flash already used. Impale should lock him down. Not yet killed. Finally gonna get taken out here as Bwipo and Broxah. They've chased very far. PerkZ can hold for a reply, but in a 1v2 and only Athene's gonna need a long time. He's now all of a sudden in some trouble. Those crystal slashes can combine the CC, but Fnatic get the second kill.
Oh, Wunder just needing a few seconds on that flash. He saw Broxah on that control ward in the top lane, so he knew he was coming. He already ran away from that turret, but Sion ulti is so good at just driving by a turret, chasing down someone in the long lane, and then they get onto Wunder and secure a kill. So 0-2 on this GP, still ahead in CS, but we've got to remember, without the Klepto, the insane amount of gold generation we used to see earlier in the split is definitely nerfed a bit and changed a bit.
And Wunder, he tried to show respect, but it was far too easy for the engage to happen.
Oh, that flash, man. We're talking like 2 or 3 seconds by the time he dies.
And look, there's no TP on mid, no TP on support from the rest of GG. Oh, Caps! He just solo killed PerkZ!
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to an international event as Caps smacks PerkZ.
Oh my word. Caps! He just claps the current reigning champion of Europe.
We need to see a replay of that. We need to see exactly how that played out. Because we've seen those.
We've got to get the face cam of Caps in that. He has to be so smug. Getting a solo. Well, right now he's not smug. It's already happened.
There's a question I sometimes ask in moments like that. Is that what Tilt is made of? Because what a play. As it stands, Fnatic extend their gold lead, and this is exactly how it happened.
All right, so PerkZ still feeling fairly healthy. Assume the Caps will land some long-range poke straight into his face. There we go.
So that's when the initial poke happens, and then he follows up with the sleep. And because I believe he didn't have his cleanse available, not sure when he used it, but as a result, he couldn't get out of that situation. That was the reaction that we wanted. What a great solo kill for Caps.
Now if you're G2 eSports, your top lane has died twice. Your mid lane on the Karma here, known to be so good in the early laning phase, just died due to some very long range and a great engage from Caps, almost hiding that little bubble when he was actually landing the initial poke damage. So PerkZ didn't flash away from it, and he ended up going down. it's bad for G2 eSports solo laners. They're down in gold as well in this game.
Oh, it's so great to see Cap stepping up and building this rivalry with PerkZ, which has been growing over the last year and a half, especially on a champion that PerkZ was really trying to campaign for and show off on.
It's not the first time we see Cap solo killing PerkZ, however, when they face each other. Very first game where Fnatic played against G2 and it was Caps on the stage. He did the same thing. Rise against Syndra back then last year, and he continued to try his best. PerkZ, of course, found more success with his team, but in this 1v1 matchup, he's currently losing.
Yeah, absolutely the case, but there is an important thing to take note of, gentlemen. Rage Blade picked up by Hjärnan, as well as Trinity Force on the way for Wunder. I feel like that one-item power spike is potentially on the way, especially with an Athenes from PerkZ buffing up Hjärnan's Varus.
Still waiting for that Trinity Force to come out from Wunder, though. And with the Athenes, like that poke damage isn't going to be as impactful as it was for Caps in game 1. So we'll see how PerkZ continues to tailor his itemization. Will he just go for that full support route and build towards the support item second?
There we go. Ardent Sensor, maybe.
Ardent Sensor, that's the bad.
I got you, brother.
I was expecting to see Jankos be a bit more proactive around topside. Oh no,
oh no.
Going asleep.
Dun, 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 dun. That stopwatch was used. Now there's going to be a turnaround. Flash forward from PerkZ. Here comes Jankos. Portal jump buys some time, but here's Broxah. Caps his escape with his life as the unstoppable onslaught comes out. Now all of a sudden, here comes Bwipo. He's looking for PerkZ, the defending champion, about to go down. Pops the plant, and PerkZ is still running for his life. The fracture into the impale. Bwipo bites one.
Caps was so low. Where's the GP ulti from Wunder? You gotta use it here to assist your team when they're fighting in the other lanes while you're just farming. Caps had no flash, could have gone down. The axe sadly just missed from Jankos, and just as we talk about that, we actually see a bit more trading top and bot lane as well.
Oh, is that a teleport? That is a teleport. I think Caps is going to be the one that's looking to arrive. Here comes Rekkles. Hylissang as well. It's a double TP as the paddle star will not smack anyone. Double TP is used for an opportunistic play. Fnatic maintain a 1,800 gold lead.
And remember what we said coming into the game throughout the draft. G2 have a very strong mid-game composition. They can force a lot of plays once they hit these item spikes.
Hold that thought, because Bwipo is about to get taken out. Chilling Smite for the assist, and Wunder will be donated the kill.
This is what I wanted to see more of from Jankos. Try and get this GP further ahead. Player on the top side. There was a problem for him earlier that TPs would be available on Fnatic and they couldn't just tower dive to Sion yet. Not enough damage from a GP. But now the Trinity Force is here. That's big for him. And Jankos needs to keep being active because this team, they need him, and they need him so much.
Oh, PerkZ constantly playing on the back foot. But let's look back at how this was set up. You talked a little bit about it, Deficio, the Gangplank ultimate. Note that it is up and available, yet not used. PerkZ flashes in aggressively, trying to set up Jankos to get the kill. He doesn't feel confident enough, though, to go for the dive, and as a result, it ends up being a
You can see him in this replay going in on PerkZ.
So this is where it's really good from Jankos, flashing into just constantly body block from PerkZ, who's able to land the W just before the ultimate goes down. We saw Wadid also trying to roam up into the mid lane, does get interrupted from Hylissang. This would have confirmed another kill in favor of G2. Unfortunately, they don't feel confident enough to commit because Caps, he does a great job of using his abilities to just zone away G2 and prevent them from committing onto the top lane.
How important is it that Wunder and Jankos don't have their flash? We'll look into that in a moment. Once again, Bwipo finds himself under some pressure. He's just stacking that armor. He's even on...
Oh, here we go.
Ladies and gentlemen, 20 minutes, 9 seconds on the clock. Wits End plus Rageblade. It is decimating the HP bar of
Look at Broxah, look at Broxah.
Broxah's nowhere near. Hylissang's inside the pit. 2,800 hit points. Battlestar comes out. Wadid takes down Hylissang. Baron is down. 1200 HP. It's secured by G2, but at what cost? Bwipo, roar of the Slayer, takes down Wadid. And now Fnatic are trying to use Zombie Bwipo as a front line. Caps and Broxah sitting on the back end, buying time for Rekkles.
Fantastic call from G2 Esports. They recall from the bot lane. Rekkles goes back down there to just farm like he normally wants to do. And suddenly G2, 2 items on the AD carry. They strike at a 20-minute Baron.
And this was the mid game that we were talking about. G2 with the decisive calls, G2 with the confidence to go for the early Baron again. Fnatic do not find the fight, G2 find the kills, and they equalize the goal.
And unlike game 1, where G2 started the first Baron of the game, they didn't get punished on the way out. Managed to make their escape, and they take control of the game. They will lose 2 towers in the process, but with Baron buff, they may be able to unlock more.
Yeah, if they can just get all 3 out of turrets here, seeing as they can push into different lanes, especially around Hjärnan, who's so strong on the Varus. It all starts with the trade top lane, but look at the dual lane from G2. They've just run straight from base to Baron. Rageblade is fully stacked now. Hjärnan dealing a ton of damage, even though we're only 20 minutes in. And Fnatic are not able to do anything to stop the Baron itself. Great lane swap, great call from G2 Esports.
And of course, as we jump out of the replay, we're straight into a Fnatic fight. They've taken out Wadid. I don't know how that happened. Here comes Jankos and Wunder, though. They need to get something back. Chain of Corruption misses, but the barrel and the hail of arrows take down Caps. Hylissang gets bopped by a parlay, and G2 are not done yet. It's a 2-for-1 trade. They're looking to secure another tower, as they've already dropped one during the course of that replay. Bwipo's trying to use that smash to buy some time. Unstoppable onslaught used defensively, but he's burst down. Hjärnan has a fully stacked Rageblade, and he is angry, hammering down on Fnatic. Another tower falls, and G2 pull ahead.
And this is why so many people show so much respect towards Jankos' Olaf and Wunder when he is on a carry. These two play so differently and have so much more of an impact. Look at the flank from the duo as they come in from the right-hand side.
Take some time here. Wadid and Hjärnan trying to just stay alive for as long as possible. Wadid, as a good support, will give up his own life for his AD carry. And now we have the engage coming in. And Wunder managed to connect a great barrel combo, dealing a ton of damage onto Caps. And this is why they allowed this GP here to just sit and farm in the top lane if you're G2. That's why they said we can wait for Trinity Force and your second item to be completed, because then we get plays like this from Wunder and G2 Esports.
So now G2, they fell behind a little bit earlier, but with a great Baron call, they've reclaimed control over the game. They're getting back some of that global gold, utilizing the spikes that they have now hit, but they need to be able to close things out. We've talked so much about this when it comes to Fnatic, how well they can close against this team.
It's still crazy that 5 minutes ago, Fnatic were ahead 1k gold. They were the ones doing great. Caps and just solo kill PerkZ, but quick turnarounds, good fights with Jankos involved, and then a great call for Baron, and suddenly it's G2 Esports with the goal lead and still a massive AD carry here. Hjärnan wants to get close to these turrets here. He wants to fight.
All right, let's see if they can find it. Still 16 seconds on that buff as the tower is being chipped away. Hjärnan got himself stacks on that Rageblade. Here comes PerkZ flying in from the side. The 5-man stack of G2. Couple autos away from finishing off this tower. It will eventually drop, and G2 escape with the objective.
And I want to use this opportunity to talk a little bit more about Jankos, because this is his first final. For so long, this guy has yet to have the opportunity to battle to be called the best in Europe. He's always stumbled when it comes to that semi-final spot. And now alongside G2, coming into game 2, when things look so bad, he is the big facilitator. He is becoming the big carry, and he could be the reason that we equalize this series.
And we saw the focus on him in the draft. The moment Olaf was open, instantly they lock it in for him. Fnatic on their side wanted to remove the Fiora pick from Wunder instead of that jungle champion here from Jankos, and he's been showing up.
And I remember you saying, Deficio, we need to see how well he plays. 4-0-2.
Also want to see Fnatic ban it.
Showing up, and that's exactly the implication. We'll see how that changes as this game plays out. For now, though, I am going to permit myself one quick stat, and I will not do any more. That was the fastest Baron of the split, and 2018 secured at 20 minutes and 23 seconds.
But that was actually a good stat, and normally your stats suck, so those were a little bit different.
Okay, I'll find you one that sucks, and I'll still count it
Now he's going to look for cloud drakes, Deficio. Good job. Well,
as it stands, though, G2, they got great advantage, 4 towers out of that Baron. They've extended their itemization and their gold lead, and this is where their team composition strengths are really going to shine.
yes. The question is, how will they look to try and force these fights? Will they even try and force fights? Because you still have pressure on the side lane, which Fnatic is trying to shut down.
Wunder's going to flash away from the Sleepy Trouble bubble, but with the help of Broxah and Bwipo, it is just a matter of time. He finally gets taken out as the rest of Fnatic arrive. They dove 2 towers for that one, and they should be able to take it out.
Yeah, well, G2 got the outer turrets with the Baron, they got a lot of gold for themselves. They're not that far ahead in terms of the carries. If you look at Sivir here for Rekkles, like 300 CS at this point, almost completing his Infinity Edge, and Fnatic, despite being down a little bit, they're still getting a kill here. They're trying to get more.
Yeah, and I just wanted to bring this topic of conversation up because, oh, look at this, engage
Let's
from
take
G2.
a look. Sleepy Trouble bubble connects onto Hjärnan, and he's already able to escape. Fnatic cannot find a lot more, but keep your eyes on Caps. Flying the damage in with that Paddle Star Portal Jump combo. Firing from the sideline, and he's not going to help Fnatic at the tower. But they take advantage, and despite being behind in gold, are taking towers.
We said it game 1, we're going to say it again game 2. Fnatic team fighting. They proved in game 1 that they are one hell of a team fighting team, and when you have Rekkles playing on the Sivir, when you pair that up with a Braum, Fnatic still have the ability to fight as the game progresses.
Well, we need to see G2 now respond properly. They're sadly not a Play the Ruined King yet on Hjärnan. He's close to it. We'll probably go back now and get it on the next one, and then once he completes 3 items on his side, they can try and use that to burn down the front line of Fnatic. But sadly for them on the other side, this Sivir here was sitting with just that Essence Reaver earlier, and it was going to be a lot of time before Rekkles could be a carry. 27 minutes in with 310 CS. He's on 3 items.
It's also going to be much harder for G2 to take this next Baron, because number 1, Fnatic is going to be more aware of the rushing power and potential that G2 do have, but also when you play against a Zoe around this Baron area, it becomes so hard because she can just hide in these pockets of darkness, constantly throw this poke out that can just chunk you out low, force your members back, and then instantly you're the one with priority over the objective.
G2 still needs to be able to do something around it. Use it to force a fight with the Great Varus ulti maybe and turn it against Fnatic. They can kill that front line if they have enough time. Fnatic, of course, will try and do the same against G2. It's a lot squishier, this game, compared to the last one, because it is a GP top lane. There's Fnatic with the control around the Baron. This is going to be the biggest fight, though, for G2 in the game. If they can actually win it and further snowball, they can close out the game.
Well, Fnatic not going to give G2 the chance to start it. It's a Fnatic initiation.
But
The chain of corruption is starting to split the turn for G2 as they're pushing Fnatic backwards. Cap still trying to fire off those Qs on the side lane. Gets chunked out by PerkZ, and nobody has fallen yet. The tension escalates as the Sleepy Trouble bubble pulls just ever so slightly short.
And Jankos, he body blocks the initial engage, utilizing his ultimate so that neither Fnatic nor G2 get the optimal setup, but now Hylissang, he does have the flash.
Does this mean G2 can push into Baron control? They managed to challenge
They're gonna
in
try.
the area. The teleport's going in.
Yeah, they have the Karma Shield coming in as well, so they can actually stay pretty healthy around Baron itself. Let's see what happens with Fnatic here. We have a TP coming behind.
Double TPs. Caps is coming in from behind the pit, and Bwipo's going to be inside the river. He's instantly running for his life. There's no ultimate available. Wunder needs to find the powder kicks. Puts one down. Is interrupted by Hylissang. The damage hasn't come out yet. It's a multi-man knockup. Fnatic have got themselves 3. They're looking for a quadra. Not going to find it just yet as Caps is hunting Wunder. Hjärnan gets run down, stunned down.
He's going again!
For Rekkles. Are you kidding me?
Kill!
Insane! Fnatic in the late game team fight. They just keep destroying G2. It all starts with Bwipo TPing in behind. It looks like G2 can maybe kill him, but he turns it around, and then we kept talking about how this Sivir was farming. She was getting items. 3 is enough for Rekkles. He gets another pentakill.
Oh, while all eyes are on Rekkles, you have to give so much praise to Bwipo as well. Let's see how this fight kicks off. They have the double teleport. Bwipo comes in from behind, whereas Caps comes in from the front. They're trying to get this collapse down onto G2, and they're funneled into this choke.
And this start is fine for G2. They get 4 stacks on the rage plate so quickly they can deal a bunch of damage to Bwipo, but Wunder can't get in with the barrels. They keep dying, so he's actually not adding any value. And then the knock-up into insane AoE damage from the Sivir.
So good setup into an immediate follow-up from Rekkles. This time he was able to secure himself the pentakill. Wunder could not have an impact, and we say it time and time again. Fnatic and their team fighting, you can never afford to underestimate it.
Ladies and gentlemen, I did not want to do this, but I will. I will hold that thought actually, as Caps bows to Rekkles. We jump back into the action. Fnatic have picked themselves up an Infernal Drake and they're diving all the way forward. G2 are routed and running for their lives. Jankos forced to flash over the wall. They're not done yet. Rekkles has got one. Hell, every time he gets kills, I think another pentakill is on the way. But G2 are able to escape with their lives. Fnatic with the gigantic lead, and they're pressuring G2's base.
Fnatic now with so much control. They have a minion wave bot, they have a minion wave mid. They have G2's base in their eyes, and they want to take everything from the reigning champions.
Oh, what a performance from Fnatic, despite the strength of G2 eSports. Now, for Fnatic, they still have to press through the final objectives. Shut down the defending champion. Shut down the 4-time back-to-back winners. The new look, of course, PerkZ the only returning member. And this Karma 0-3-4 is not enough in the game.
Exactly, super tough spot for G2. Tried to set up everything around Hjärnan on the Varus. Succeeded for a while. But then the big crucial team fights they had to win, they lost it, and it was that pentakill for Rekkles. This is that play we saw just before.
And again, look at Bwipo and his engages coming in from the flank, getting another crucial knockup onto the AD carry and preventing Hjärnan from having an impact. While Rekkles is completely untouched on the backline, he is free to just shred through whatever target is in front of him, and Fnatic find themselves another successful fight.
You're G2 now. You're way back in the game. It just feels like Fnatic needs to make a massive mistake against you. Someone like Rekkles or Caps needs to get caught out instantly in the fight, because Hjärnan, he's now behind in items, despite being so far ahead earlier. Broxah and the rest of Fnatic want another kill.
Yeah, look at the damage. Of course, that unstoppable ultimate from Jankos will keep him alive just a little bit longer. The Sleepy Trouble bubble will tag Wadid on the way out, but there's no follow-up. Fnatic knock over their 6th tower. Look at the gold swing. It was only a few thousand in advantage for G2, but it's nearing the 10K mark for Fnatic. We're nearing match points.
And again, it's the worst feeling if you're G2 in the way you're losing, because you have these advantages. You have ways you can win the game.
Yep.
And then when you walk into a big team fight, you just see the enemy AD carry pick up 5 kills, and you're like, oh, okay, we lost that lead instantly. Everything we just did for the last few minutes to build this advantage is now gone.
The one thing is important to remember as well, leading into this game and leading into all of the trash talk and the hype, G2 were the underdogs. G2 were not the favorites in this matchup. So many people anticipated this level of performance from Fnatic, and maybe it's even better than anticipation. Look at this, the chain of corruption slowly starting to spread. Defensive flash from Bwipo as Fnatic are trying to push 2 lanes at once. Caps takes out the top lane tower. The rest of Fnatic pushing into the mid lane. Jankos got a decent amount of MR and HP, so he's not going to get insta-gibbed by those paddle stars, but it doesn't matter because Fnatic, they've broken open the base.
Can Wunder find an opportunity to just chunk a member of Fnatic out? He still has a lot of gold. He does have 3 items. It's going to be so difficult, though, for G2 as they look to defend their base.
All right, a couple of ultimates available, but not going to be enough. The tower falls. And whenever you see an Olaf running backwards with the ultimate, you can understand the situation. Fnatic very happy to take 1 inhibitor, very happy to take a 2nd inhibitor on the precipice of going 2-0 in the Spring Split Finals, and they're doing this one by the numbers. Gonna push down to the bottom lane and take the inhibitor as well.
Gotta break the spirits here, see if they can actually get a fight. G2 currently still trying to be very defensive. Fnatic looking for something.
Man, it's about sending a message. Fnatic are saying, screw it, let's make 3 pentakills. Let's see if they can find one for Caps. He's got a paddle star kill already. Manages to find himself a double. The rest of Fnatic playing defense. Hylissang catching every single shot with that Unbreakable. The Nexus is being knocked over, and Fnatic are deconstructing G2 eSports. The defending champions go down, and Fnatic are one win away from the title.
And while we talk a lot about the AD carry damage coming in from Fnatic, the entire setup around the fights is actually the most important thing to look at. The Braum and the Sire, 2 games in a row, have been huge for Bwipo and Hylissang. The Braum is sitting there blocking all the damage from Hjärnan, and Bwipo is landing good engages or big knockups that allows the Fnatic carries to deal all the damage.
And you have to bring attention to Caps as well. Solo killing PerkZ, finding constant picks all across the map, giving the pentakill to Rekkles. This guy is performing out of his mind in front of his home crowd.
He is indeed. Caps, he put his money where his mouth is, and it is looking like an international event for G2 eSports as Fnatic are 2-0 up.
But it's time now for G2 to just bounce back, and they need PerkZ to do so well. They need PerkZ to outperform Caps in the next game so they can play around that mid lane, because Fnatic have clearly shown they're banning some of those champions that Wunder can carry on a little bit earlier, like the Camille. He doesn't even get to play a Swain. So now they need PerkZ to win the mid lane.
Look at the gigantic smiles on the faces of the Fnatic members. That Karma question will be answered shortly. The Olaf question will be answered shortly. Fnatic will get side selection as we go into game number 3. And it's going to be very interesting to see what G2's answer is, because they now need to survive 3 games in a row if they want a shot at winning.
But the important thing is we've seen good things from G2. Like game 1, they had a great early game, and it was just a couple bad fights that Fnatic really did outperform. And then going into game 2, G2 again found this comeback in, but they couldn't hold on to that.
No, they absolutely could not. And to hear a little bit more on how G2 lost and Fnatic won, let's hear from our analysts.
Thank you very much, Trevor. Game 2, and yes, G2 showed good things. Yes, they had an early game, and we will talk about that plenty. But what does it matter if you have Rekkles on a Sivir in this game? Let's take a look at his now official pentakill brought to you by Acer Predator. Who's gonna stop this man?
Apparently no one, because they set up for another Nasher, put Rekkles in a prime position to just destroy the team fight. He's basically soloing everyone at this point. There's no interaction from the Zoe anymore. He's just running him down, and that's just so impressive for Rekkles and Fnatic to see, because he's always in the right position at the right time.
Oh, and when G2 funnels into that choke point and you have a Sivir, Boomerang, and Ricochet, you say, yes, this pentakill is freaking mine. And that is what we see there, and this I think is so lovely. Cap says, here you go, sir. You can have your moment in the spotlight. So what is the takeaway then over the 2 games if we see this?
I mean, I do want to praise the whole Fnatic squad, because they really show up in the team fights. We see Hylissang playing very well on Braum. We see Bwipo forcing the fights with the Sion and kind of setting up Rekkles for success in the fight. So a lot of praise to the whole team for playing well.
Absolutely.
Something that is so confusing to me about what G2 is doing is that they have a composition that wants to be the one splitting. Once again, they have the Gangplank. They are not the ones that want to force the Baron. They want the enemy team to force the Baron. They want to farm more effectively, put the GP ult on top of the enemies, and then put them in that choke point. But they are taking the bad fights, and on top, fighting against the team fight composition. They're just playing it wrong.
Their mid-game and late-game decision-making leaves a lot to be desired. But as you said, when it comes to picks and bans, a lot of this is a dream composition for G2 eSports. You guys said after game 1, I don't want them to see change too much, right? But they changed a lot.
Yes, I mean, we see Wunder on the GP has been very good on it throughout the split. We see Jankos on Olaf, he has been very good on this as well. The only question mark for me is the Karma. I think it doesn't really fit the way PerkZ wants to play the game, so I would have liked to see something else, but other than that, it was basically the dream come for G2.
The dream composition, and Jankos on Olaf usually is very scary. Why didn't he get off to a great start?
I mean, the whole early game was designed for him to actually invade the enemy red buff, and his lanes to actually react to his own red buff invade, and no one reacted. They just let Skarner even take the scribe, which means that he knew where he was, and then he takes red buff too, walks away, and Olaf is behind.
And the important part was that PerkZ was actually pushing the mid lane, walking towards it, but he didn't actually walk to the red buff to stop him, and he kind of just gave Broxah the ability to go even in the early game, which he shouldn't be allowed to.
And it feels like team calls from both sides. And this is where I think the 20-minute Baron was still a very impressive call from the side of G2, because they had to make something happen. although amazing, you think that G2's Baron calls sometimes are to their detriment. Why is that?
So basically here, I think the Nash call in itself is perfectly fine. You basically, you know where the enemies are on the map. You know that you're going to burn it down and be able to run away afterwards. But the thing is, for G2, I think they almost have a reluctance to be patient. They almost feel pressure to make the play because they kind of feel like they cannot hang with Fnatic in the late game potentially, where Rekkles is obviously going to take over. And it just feels like you just have to chill a bit, actually just discuss it obviously with the team and just wait a bit more and understand your win conditions a lot better.
I think in this case, like this Nashor worked out fine, but I think the mindset about how G2 is approaching the game is just wrong. They are always the ones forcing the Baron. They need to understand that they need to give up some pressure and then push out the side lanes. Understand that Fnatic want to be grouped up as 5. Split them up. You can use the Tahm Kench, you can use the Gangplank to push turrets, and that is the way they have to play. And that is on top of that why I don't like the Karma so much, because it doesn't attribute to this playstyle. Karma wants to group as well, but it doesn't really do anything in this particular game.
I also would have loved to see them when they draft the Varus and the Tahm. You can actually play to this lane. Like Sivir is not very strong early game, Braum neither, so you can actually rotate to the bottom side, use the early pressure from the Olaf, get bot tower, get their bot lane ahead, but they didn't really use the advantage they had in the draft from the bottom side in the game.
No, they didn't. And this is now a position that G2 has never found themselves in all of the finals they have played. They are up, or they are down rather, 2 games, and they are up versus match point, coming from a Fnatic, which I think we just have to praise a bit more for their mid-late game decision making and team fighting. This seems even better than what we saw from them in the regular split.
I just want to know what Rekkles ate for breakfast, because I mean,
well
if you go into a series and in the first game you get a delayed pentakill, in the second game you get the real pentakill, like what more can you expect from the AD carry?
So I gotta ask, is this time for the Vitality strat? They banned 13 AD carries in their 4 games versus Fnatic. Is it time?
No, I don't think so at all.
Okay.
I think in itself, the amount, like obviously the amount of kills that Rekkles gets, like looks really good on paper and obviously looks good in the highlight reel. But I do think it comes down to G2's execution. It's more about that. If you have a lead in both games and you're unable to close it out, that basically says that you just don't understand how to play the game. That's basically it.
It feels like if you would change the nameplates, this is how teams would play versus G2 in a final. You've been in that position. It kind of feels like you're running behind the facts and not able to catch up.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm looking at the series and I think a lot of it comes down to the team fights. We have seen 2 games in a row where the team fights were what decided the game. So I wanna see them challenge maybe the Braum pick. I think Tahm Kench Braum just provides so much more in a team fight than Tahm Kench does. So I think they should change something up at least.
I think there's 2 ways to approach it. Either your way, like basically match the team fight power, try to match them there, because they had done a good job of contesting Baron and being there first, but they have the wrong composition for it. If they want to play this composition with the GP, with the Tahm, they need to play the side game. They need to get the 1-3-1 going, make sure that the enemy team also is forced to split up, and then all of a sudden they have a win condition. But like this, playing into the 5v5 card, there's no chance against this team comp.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like the games haven't been competitive. Like it's so back and forth, you know, fighting all the time. The crowd is hyped, you know. It's super cool to watch, you know.
Yeah.
So, but they just need to play it slightly better for them to get to a point where they can compete with Fnatic.
Yeah, I agree, and I think your note about the crowd and feeling it, Fnatic is in the zone. That's how he described it. They're in the zone. They are taking those engagements when they know they have a little bit of leeway, and they're driving it home. And G2 has to do something to break that momentum. So we'll see what they come up with, because only 1 win is standing between Fnatic and a return to former glory as they look to take back the trophy from G2. Game 3 is coming up after the break. Don't go anywhere. Whew.